Hey guys, wanted to get you the last scene of the first act. If you remember, everyone has gone to Macbeth's castle, that's Inverness, for a party, celebration, big feast. This is to celebrate their victory of the day, and also it's at Macbeth's as an honor to him because he was the late great hero of the day, just getting the promotion thing of quarter. Hopefully you can see what I have on the back, on this window back here. At this feast, you gotta picture a huge room, probably 150 people in there at the Macbeth's castle, again, Inverness. And Macbeth is the host, so clearly he should be in there, likely sitting next to the king in a spot of honor. But he's actually, while this is going on, big party in the room, he's out in the hallway and he's walking up and down and he's thinking about these plans of killing the king. And he's going through all these reasons, and that's what I have on the window back here. At the top it says, why I shouldn't kill Duncan. And he's got 6 different things here that he's walking around thinking of that he comes up with. All right, so this is what he says. He starts off with, if it were done when it was done, then for well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequences and catch with his surcease success, but this blow might be the be all and the end all. So he's saying, all right, if it would be over when I killed him, if it was just a matter of killing him and then with his, meaning the king's surcease, I would have success, then that would be okay. He says, but here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. So what he actually is referring to is a spiritual nature, is the afterlife. He's like, if it would be done when it was done here, it'd be one thing, but it's not. What we do on this life, in this world, affects the afterlife. So the number one up there is the afterlife. Okay? Then he says, but in these cases, we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught, return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poison chalice to our own lips. Very simply, the second reason is karma. And he uses the idea of what the inventor creates comes back to him. If I become king by killing the king, somebody might do that to me. All right? And he, again, he uses another image. A chalice is a decorative cup. He's like, if you pass around a cup of poison to get to somebody that you're trying to kill, it eventually gets passed back to you. All right? So that's number 2. Then he says, he's here in double trust. So he comes up with 2 reasons together. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject. So very simply, number 3 is that he's his thane. And I was talking about at the beginning, a thane is supposed to be obviously very loyal to his king. And he's like, I'm his thane and I'm thinking of doing this. And he said, strong against the deed. And I should be fighting against this if I knew this was going to happen. He says, and then as his host, the idea of being the host of somebody, that the king is in his house, his castle, is really important, especially at that time. And he says, I should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. All right, so that's the double out of there, 3 and 4. I'm his thane and I'm his host. Okay, and he says, besides, Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off. Duncan has been a great king. Everyone is going to be so upset that he was killed that no matter who was king afterwards, it's going to be a problem. All right, so he brings up Duncan for the first time. All right, and then he concludes with, I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition which overleaps itself and falls on the other. Very interestingly, he acknowledges in himself the very same quality that Lady Macbeth said she was afraid of. That he would want this, but he won't do what's necessary to get it, to take it. And he says, I can't do this. I'd love to be king, but I don't have the ambition to do this. Well, because he's been walking around the hall outside the banquet, Lady Macbeth comes walking out looking for him, all right? And as she walks out to him, he sees her and says, how now, what's the news? And she says, he has almost supped. Why have you left the chamber? She's like, he's almost finished eating. What are you doing out here? And he says, has he asked for me? No, you naughty ass. She's like, of course he has. You're the host. You're supposed to be in there. And look at what he says to her. We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon. First of all, he tells her, I've made a decision when not doing this. And then he gives another reason, which is the sixth thing I had up there, because he's just given me a promotion. I'm the new Thane of Quarter. I should be happy and thrilled about this. Everybody's congratulating me, not casting it aside so soon, thinking that this isn't good enough, okay? So it seems like he's made a very definitive decision. However, she's not gonna let it go. She doesn't just say, okay, all right, fine, come back and have dinner. This is what she says, this is what she does to him. Was the hope drunk, wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since, and wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? So clearly she's chastising him and saying, oh, what's the matter? And she compares it to, would you come up with this idea when you were drunk and now you sobered up? And you're like, oh my goodness, what did I do last night? What was I thinking? Okay? From this time such I account thy love. Art thou afeared to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? This is going to be bring up the theme of what she says and does to him here. She's like, oh, what are you afraid? You can't remember who she's saying this to. This is our warrior Macbeth. You remember the guy lopping off heads and cutting people open? She's like, oh, what's the matter? You're afraid? All right? Wouldst thou have that which thee esteemest the ornament of life, and live a coward in thy own esteem? Letting I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat in the adage. An adage is an expression, and she refers to, oh, you're like the cat, and this is a great expression. You're like the cat that would like to eat fish, but doesn't want to get its feet wet. And that's what she says to him. And he comes back and he says, prithee peace, I dare all that become a man, who dares do more is none. He's like, don't pull that on me. I'm a man and everything I've done is very manly. To do this, to do more, that's not being a man. But again, she won't let it go. What beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me? She's like, why did you even bring this up? Which is interesting because it seems like she actually brought it up with him. When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. This is a very interesting idea she comes up with, and it gets very much to this whole male-female reference that has come up before with her saying, unsex me. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it's smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums, and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done this to me. So it's interesting in a few things. First of all, it's incredibly violent. What Lady Macbeth just said there is like, you know what? I've nursed a baby. And that's an interesting point she brings up in itself, because there does not seem to be any Macbeth children anywhere around. So we don't know what that references to. The idea that she may have had a child that passed, again, we're talking back in like the 1200s. Maybe not that unusual, maybe that's what the reference is. But anyway, her point is, you gotta think of a mother nursing a baby, the most tender, nurturing thing you can think of. And she says, I know what that's like. And I would take that baby and pull it away from my breast and dash its brains out against a rock. If I had brought up and made a promise to you as you had done to me, I would do that before I would break the promise. Okay? Really the epitome, the ultimate of her being unsexed, being so much not like a woman. You remember her saying, praying to the gods, exchange my mother's milk for gall. Well, that's like a direct reference to that. Okay? He is horrified by this, and you can see what he says is, you hear him faltering. He's like, if we fail, so he's already now questioning it. And she says, we fail, but screw your courage to the sticking place, and we'll not fail. When Duncan is asleep, where to? The rather shall his day's hard journey soundly invite him. His two chamberlains will I with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the water of the brain, shall be a fume, and the receipt of reason a limbic only. When in swinish sleep their drenched natures lie as in death, what cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers who shall bear the guilt of our great quell? Okay, so first of all, she answers him like, if we fail, we fail. But you know what? Get your act together and we won't fail. And then she gives the plan. Listen, Duncan's had a long, hard day. The war, the long ride here. He's going to be out. He's been partying all night. He's going to be out. And you have to understand, Duncan's not going to be put in some little guest room. It would probably be a whole suite. And in an outer chamber would be guards. And she refers to them. It's like, I'll get them drunk. And when they're drunk, we can go in and do whatever we want, and we'll make it look like they did it. So she had a whole plan together. And he realizes everything she said, thinks about it in this whole plan, and he looks at her and he says, bring forth men, children only, for thy undaunted mettle should compose nothing but males. Interesting, because he alludes to this male-female gender thing again, and he's like, boy, you shouldn't make up anything that would be a girl. You should bring forth men, children only. Okay? And the last line, I'm just going to the last line of what he says is, I am settled and bend up each corporal angel agent to this terrible feat. Away mock the time with fair show. False face must hide what the false heart doth know. He's decided to go along with it. So a very interesting question and discussion is, what happened in about 10 minutes from when he went through this list of reasons not to kill Duncan to talking to Lady Macbeth and him saying, okay, we're going to do it. And clearly the idea is what Lady Macbeth said to him. She attacked his manhood and basically said, you're not a man if you don't do this. And she convinced him to go against all these very good logical reasons for not killing the king. Just a point here of something that a lot of people get troubled by with the plot of this. It seems to be a hole in the plot. The scene before, we just saw Duncan announce his son, Malcolm, the Prince of Cumberland, which is the heir. And the idea of Macbeth killing Duncan now, we may think like, okay, so what good's that going to do? They've already named the heir. I have to say, definitely a detail that is not addressed. It does become resolved, but it's really not addressed. And there's only speculation here of what we may consider. The most logical thing is simply that. That's a very logical approach. What good would killing Duncan do if there's already another person, Malcolm, named heir? And Macbeth and Lady Macbeth even, they're not thinking logically. The other slight possibility is that Malcolm was named to be future king. Duncan wasn't retiring. Malcolm wasn't going to become king next day or next week even. It's like, sometime in the future. And the thought perhaps is that maybe at this point Malcolm's a little young, and if something happened to Duncan right now, he would be too young to be king. All right, so that's the only resolution of that. Listen, I'm sorry, I'm taking this myself. I'm just going to bring this a little bit closer, see if you guys could get those reasons if you took the scene before. There are those 6 reasons why I shouldn't kill Duncan. The afterlife, karma, I'm his Thane, I'm his host, the idea that Duncan is a good king, and that I was just promoted. All right, guys, that's the end of Act 1. And so the stage is set. And I'll just point out one other thing. Act 1 was basically all in one day, from starting out the day with the war and ending at Macbeth's castle here with them seemingly decided that they are going to kill Duncan. All right, talk to you guys soon.